Hey folks, today we have a computer video, and it's one I've been wanting to make since I saw the laptop being in existence. And that is the Thinkpad T440p. Here she is, brand new, fresh out of the box. And this is going to be my dad's new computer. The Dell that he had didn't end up working out. The motherboard went bad. The fan controller specifically just went kaput, and putting a new motherboard in there it really wasn't worth it, because Dell seems to have this issue on a number of laptops. So we decided to give him an upgrade, and that upgrade is a Haswell based machine. That is this ThinkPad, and that gives me the opportunity to talk about it. It's a very interesting machine because it sort of signifies Lenovo's departure from the classic ThinkPad design. It deviates quite a bit more than even the T430 does. So let's start out with an overview of the machine. As you can see, the ThinkPad logos are the other way around. Now you turn the laptop this way, so when the screen's open and you're looking at it, you see Lenovo the right way up and ThinkPad the right way up. And when you put it down the normal way a laptop would be, they're upside down. So they're sort of thinking the way Apple does on that front, where they stick it the right way so people see it when you're at, let's say, a Starbucks or something. The bottom of the machine is pretty clean. It has a very huge panel, which we will take a look at later, because I need to put different RAM in here. Still has a dock connector, and it takes a battery as well. And of course, there's a Windows 7 sticker right there. Yes, this machine came with Windows 7. How about that? So you get the battery there. It did not come with the extended battery. This was ordered off of eBay. Brand new. Still got your keyboard dripping hole right there. Big bottom panel. Another keyboard dripping hole. I don't know what that is. That might be a speaker. Or a vent or something. I'm really not sure. There you go. So, yeah, that's the top and bottom. Let's take a look at the sides. This is where the T440p differs from the T440 and the T440S. It's a much thicker laptop. The P signifies performance, I believe. So this is a performance model of the T440, which has a lot of the features that you'd find on older ThinkPads, which we will talk about. This is the natural progression of the T4 or the T420 and the T430 in many ways. This model with the P on the end. There's your fan and heatsink for the CPU right there. VGA with the screws, which is nice to see. Headset jack. You have the port here for hooking up your display. Of course, you need an adapter for DVI or HDMI. You have super speed USB ports. I believe these are USB 3.0 ports. You have an SD card slot here. The front has absolutely nothing, as you can see. The other side has, yes, an optical drive. Unlike the T440 and T440S, the T440p still has an optical drive, which I am a very big fan of, because every now and then you might need a CD or a DVD to install some software, watch a movie, or rip a music CD or something like that. Looks like here you have a powered USB on the left and a regular USB on the right. I'm guessing that's USB 2.0 because there's just no super speed logo there. I'm guessing. Could be wrong about that. You have your Kensington lock port there. On the back, you have Ethernet, of course. You move over here and you have another vent for the heatsink there and the fan, and you have the new power connector, which is, oddly enough, it's a rectangle now. Went from a circle to a rectangle. There is a reason for that. I can't quite remember what it is. I think you can get accessories that plug into that that also let you plug the cord in. So that's the reason they changed that port. Now let's take a look at the machine itself open. Remember, this is brand new, fresh out of the box. Pristine. Look at that. Beautiful. Comes with Windows 7. It's one of the shiniest Windows 7 stickers ever. Core i5. It's a Haswell Core i5. You have the new trackpad, which we will talk about. And you have a keyboard here. Now you'll notice a couple things missing. This is not a higher end model. It does not have a ThinkLight. I don't know if newer ThinkPads even have the option for a ThinkLight anymore. I'm not really sure if they do. But this one does not have the backlit keyboard either. It's just a plain Jane regular ThinkPad keyboard, which does feel pretty good to type on. Feels about the same as the T430. Doesn't flex or anything. Feels really nice. Yeah, the keyboard feels fine. Now, the most controversial part about this laptop was when they decided to go with this trackpad design, which I believe was carried over from the X1 series of ThinkPads, like the X1, the X1 Carbon, and other models, where they make the whole trackpad one button. And it's a very interesting. It presses down almost like a key. It's very bizarre. So even using the track point here, you use soft buttons, which doesn't feel as bad as I thought it would. But I'm sure you can't be precise and quick with it. That's the main downfall of that. It doesn't feel quite right. The texture's nice. The way the button presses down is very weird, though. It's not the same as a MacBook Pro where you get like a subtle little click. Or even my Chromebook, you get a subtle little click. But this is like a real button. It doesn't have a whole lot of travel, but it's strange. It feels very strange. And I wouldn't mind that at all if it weren't for the fact that the track point left and right click buttons are software now. They are software-driven buttons, and we are going to do some testing with that. Even the scrolling, you put your thumb there and then scroll up and down using the track point there. To me, that just seems awkward and weird. I'm not sure why they thought to do that, but clearly people did not like it. They complained about it very loudly, and on the T450 and the X450, they brought back the physical buttons for the track point. So this was not a successful design, and you can kind of see why. Software buttons just don't allow you to have precision. There's a video on YouTube that talks all about that a guy named Louis Rossman uploaded, and it's just it screwed. The reason it was not a success is because a lot of people rely on the track point for their workflow, including myself. I love track points. This would screw up my workflow. I'd have to get used to it all over again, and I might not ever get fully used to it either, which is a thing. I'm really not a fan of that, and I wish they'd changed it. But the thing is, the machine around this is really good. So if the track point sucks, I'd be willing to just use the trackpad by itself or use a mouse. Since this is going to be my dad's machine, the fact that this sucks for using the track point is not going to matter because he uses an external mouse anyway. So luckily, Lenovo got the rest of the machine right. The keyboard is still good. The screen, I don't know what screen is in this. The screens are usually pretty good in these. The build quality is still pretty solid. You know, it's still a ThinkPad, you know. It's still a good machine. So this is one thing we're going to explore a little bit later. This thing comes with Windows 7. It's going to be upgraded to Windows 10. And that's what my dad will be using on this machine. So there you have it. Let's take a look at the power cord. Okay, so you can see that rectangular connector. Here is the new connector. Yeah, here's the new connector. It is a rectangle. It looks like it has a single pin on the inside and a ground on the outside, I'm guessing. So, but the brick itself looks completely normal. It's just a regular Lenovo brick. Nothing unusual there. So this is the machine. So let's plug it in and boot it up and see what it does. There, I have the machine plugged in. I don't see any indicator LEDs. either on the thing or on the cord itself. It looks like it can be plugged in either way, which is unusual. Yeah, I literally just turned it over and plugged it in. It looks like there's no directionality to it, just like with the cylindrical connectors, the barrel connectors. Here's the model number, the T440p. And again, the P stands for performance, which we will get into once we boot this machine up. So let's try to get into the BIOS here, shall we? Machine shut itself off. There we go. Let's take a look at the BIOS. Alright, here we are. This is a Core i5 4300M. So as you can see, it does not have the U on the end. So the difference with the performance model is it uses the same sort of hardware that a traditional ThinkPad would. It uses Intel's mobile hardware rather than the Ultrabook hardware, which is what you would see on just the regular T440 and the T440S. And looks like the BIOS date is 2013, so it's newer than some of my other ThinkPads, but not by a whole lot. The design is newer and all that stuff, but you know. Now, what can you do with a ThinkPad like this? These are the specs. It came with 4 gigs of RAM. I'm going to stick 8 in there because I have the kit from my dad's old computer to put in here. Looks like it has Wacom LAN. You can turn the charge on and off. Good stuff there. Keyboard and mouse. You can disable the track point if you want and swap the function and control keys, which I know that irritates some people, so they give you the ability to swap that in the BIOS, which is nice. Let you choose which you want to use there. Speed step technology, all that fun stuff. Beep alarm. About the CPU. Hyperthreading is enabled. Of course it is. Looks like it has the date and time right, for the most part. Fingerprint reader. This one does not have the fingerprint reader. I think it's a lower end model of this ThinkPad, of the T440p. Security chip. Let's turn that off. It doesn't need to be on. Memory protection. On. Virtualization is usually disabled. But I doubt my dad's going to use it, but I'm going to turn it on anyway. You can turn various bits of I/O off. It has an NFC device. That's interesting. You can turn the Ultra Bay on and off. Bottom cover tamper detection. So I guess that's a bit like chassis intrusion on a desktop. That's interesting. Cool. Anti-theft. The AT module activation. Let's turn that off. CompuTrace. Let's turn that off. Secure boot is disabled. That's good. Legacy first. So I guess the Windows 7 install that's on here is probably BIOS driven. I might, when I do a clean install of Windows 10, what I might end up doing is switching that to UEFI. I'm going to upgrade it to get the key out of it, and then I'm going to reinstall with a clean install to get rid of all the bloat and crap you get from both Lenovo and from upgrade installs. It generally helps. Looks like you can't configure the GPU directly in the BIOS. That's interesting. Just wanted to take a look at that real quick. So that was the BIOS for you. I think now we should take a look at what's under that panel on the bottom side of the machine. Let me get a screwdriver. Alright, so I got my screwdriver that looks like a Duracell battery here. And we're going to use that to open the bottom here. Put more RAM in it. So it boots to the BIOS, we know that, so the machine works in a basic sense. Looks like they put some Loctite on these screws, judging by the blue stuff there. Yep, there's definitely Loctite on those screws. Not anymore, though. And I believe, like a lot of these machines, you just pull it forward. Yeah. And then you have access to a bunch of stuff. Here's what you have access to. Here's one improvement they made with these thicker ThinkPads. At least they put both RAM slots on the bottom now. That's pretty nice. You have access to the full CPU and heatsink from the bottom. That's a huge improvement. I like that. Wait a minute, are you serious? Let's zoom in on that real quick. I don't know if you can see that very well, but they're using a Torx bit for locking the CPU into its socket. That's interesting. I wonder if that's an Intel or a Lenovo development. Because on older laptops, even on Ivy Bridge ones, you just use a flathead to move that lever over, but now you need a Torx bit to do it. I wonder why they did that. That's kind of weird. Oh well, whatever. Fan uses a pretty typical 4-pin connector? No, it's a 5-pin connector. Alright. Looks like a pretty capable little bit of stuff there. Looks like you have the CMOS battery right there. There's your RAM. There's your hard drive with a nice piece of foil or whatever that is over it. There's the screw so you can let the optical drive out and change it out if you have to. What do we got over here? This is... looks like a wireless card. Whoops. This is what looks like a wireless card. It is a dual band card. Wireless AC. Oh man, they make the font really small on that. Let's see if I can read it for you. It's a wireless AC 7260. It looks to be an Intel wireless card. Yep, wireless AC 7260. So that's the model number of the card they put in this. But yeah, I love what they've done with these newer high performance ThinkPads, where they have made things a lot more accessible than they ever used to be. I changed out the CPU in a ThinkPad L430 not too long ago, which I have yet to do video on, and that was very interesting. This would have made it 10 times easier because the access is just literally right there. So upgrades are really easy. Hard drive, CPU, RAM, wireless. Oh, there's a slot down there. Wonder what that is. Wonder if that's an M.2 slot. Might be able to put an M.2 SSD in there. That'd be cool. Then you could keep the 500 gig hard drive they give you. Looks like that indeed is a speaker of some sort. Right there on the bottom there. So they give you quite a bit. So I'm going to go get the RAM from the old machine and stick it in here. Let's do that. Alright, so right out of the gate, this thing is getting an upgrade. So let's pull the one lone Samsung stick in here out. Stick that to one side and put these Crucial sticks in. Let's see if these are similar in any way. Yep, same exact type of RAM. PC3 12800. So that can be dumped in there. Take the other stick. Dump that in here too. There you go, RAM has been upgraded, and I'll stick the old 4 gig stick in this hard drive bag here for safekeeping, and there you go. RAM has been upgraded. So now we have the Haswell i5. We have a 500 gig hard drive, which is going to stay in there because the SSD that was in my dad's machine unfortunately also has issues. So yeah, but now we have 8 gigabytes of RAM, so this thing should be good for a while. Might get an SSD eventually. I'd put one in there now, but obviously the one that was in the other one kind of kicked the bucket for whatever reason. So we're going to stick with the hard drive because it's brand new, it's reliable, it's fine, it'll work. So yeah, and with Windows 10 it'll be fast enough anyway. So there you go. One thing I like to mention is even though the CPU socket uses a torque spit for locking and unlocking it, you could still repaste this CPU anyway because it uses Phillips head screws all around the heatsink. So just in case you were worried about that, that is a thing. So I think I'm going to stick the bottom back on this now that we've put the RAM in it, and we'll boot this thing up and see what it does. One thing I've noticed is there's a little bit more flex in this than there has been in older models, which some people think that's flimsy, but actually flex is what stops. So having some flex in the plastic isn't a bad thing. It stops the plastic from getting brittle and breaking, which is why ThinkPads are so durable half the time, is because they have a little bit of flex, but not too much. And they're not brittle, like old Bakelite plastic or something like that either, so they're good. Very good machines. Let's put the battery back in. Flip her over. Now that the upgrades are done, and plug her back in. Alright, let's boot it up and see what happens here. See what the initial install or the initial boot of the ThinkPad feels is. There's Windows 7. Once we get Windows set up, we can take a closer look at what the machine has to offer. One thing that these newer ThinkPads lack is indicator lights. There is one for the power in the on button, in the power button itself. But otherwise, there's no hard drive indicator, and that was the case with my X140E that I used to have as well. That didn't have a hard drive indicator, which really means to me that the computers are better off with an SSD if they don't have a hard drive indicator. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but okay, let's see how this trackpad is. Using the trackpad itself is actually fine. Let's just see how the how this is. Oh, this track point is weird, man. Let's try using it for part of the setup. Let's try PM T440p. Type in a username. Type in my dad's name there. No password for the time being. I accept. So this isn't impossible to use, but it is very, very weird to use. Eastern time. It is not 2 a.m. It's like 2 p.m. I think. Let's check a reliable source. Yeah, it's 2 something p.m. There you go. So change that to PM, and is that the 23rd? No, it's the 22nd. There we go. Skip the wireless network for now. Just get the thing booted up so we can look at it. I do like how they put the custom backgrounds, actually. That is pretty nice. So already with that RAM upgrade, things seem to be pretty nice. Something that everybody should do, that is to think. Looks like caps lock doesn't have an indicator light in the button anywhere. I don't know about mute. Mute does. You hit the mute button, then you get a little indicator light in the button itself. That's neat. That same type of indicator is in the function key and in a few other keys on the keyboard, but not the caps lock key, funny enough. You'd think it would be, but it's not. I think there's a backlit keyboard model of this ThinkPad as well. I don't recall when I looked at the options years ago, but I think there was a backlit keyboard version of this ThinkPad. I don't think they're doing the ThinkLite anymore. Which is a shame. The ThinkLite was a cool idea. I liked it. I don't know if you can still special order laptops with it on there or what, but I think it's a design that's sort of going away. I hope the track point never goes away. I could live without a ThinkLite and just have a backlit keyboard and be fine, but track point needs to stay, and not with software buttons, with real buttons like they have on the newer versions of these laptops, the T450 and the X450. Did I say X450? X250, I'm sorry. I think I said X450 at the beginning, too. Been a bit of a long day. Lenovo is teaming up with SugarSync. This is why I'm doing a clean install. It is a little messy with a bunch of software that my dad doesn't need. But does appear to be moving along. Wonder if Lenovo is still using HGST hard drives in these machines. Sure, we'll find out soon enough. This doesn't look like the 1080p panel that I've heard you can get with these. I don't think it is. Oh, there's the speakers. Alright, yeah, it has the Lenovo stuff on it. Alright, so let's put Stop that. Get back here. This isn't as terrible to use as I thought, actually. It's not... This newer track point is not a horrible thing. The scrolling works. The problem is it just feels stupid. It doesn't feel precise. It works fine, but it just doesn't feel precise. And I'm not a fan of that. So let's take a look at the machine. There's your 8 gigs of RAM in the machine. 64-bit OS. They did load it properly. 2.6 gigahertz Core i5 4300M. Very nice. Now let's look at the device manager and take a look at this laptop in a little bit more detail. Disk drives. It does indeed use an HGST hard drive, so Hitachi is here to stay. Intel. Sorry about that, my camera battery died. Now we have some fresh lithium batteries. Anyway, we just looked at the disk drives, and that was a Hitachi drive, as we saw. It's a 500 gig, I believe, which is plenty for my dad. Now let's look at display adapters. The reason why that's important is because some of the T440p models do come with discrete graphics, discrete NVIDIA graphics. So let's see if this is one of them. Doesn't appear to be. This appears to be a lower end model that just features Intel HD Graphics 4600, which by itself is no slouch, actually. That's really good. That's the exact same graphics chip that is in the i3 in my main computer, actually. Graphics 4600 is pretty darn good. And so is 4400. But this one has 4600, which is even better. You could still use that for quite a bit. You could run Second Life on that. You could play some games on that just fine. You might have to turn the settings down, but it would work. And it would work very smoothly. The Intel HD graphics gets better and better with each CPU generation, and that Haswell is no exception to that. Uses a Hitachi LG DVD RAM drive. Interesting. Intel 8 series chipset. What is YUSB? UOIP hub. Interesting. PS2 keyboard. ThinkPad display. This uses a display that's 1366 by 768. So even on these newer laptops, you can get a 1080p display for these, but this display is perfect for my dad because of his vision. He has to use bifocals and special computer glasses and stuff to use his machine, so the lower the resolution, the better. I mean, he only really does one thing at a time anyway, so it's fine. I would personally have preferred something like 1600 by 900, and he might too, but this honestly is fine for him. This is clearly turning out to be a lower end T440p, which is fine. You know, that's no big deal. The machine is still plenty capable and an upgrade from his old one, and still very good. Looks like it definitely uses Intel wireless AC 7260, so the wireless card in this machine is definitely set up for the future. It even has Intel Ethernet. That's pretty nice. So that's cool. CPUs. So obviously it's the Core i5 4300M. It has a TPM module in it, which he'll never use because this is not being used in a corporate environment. It's being used for home use. Got a bunch of stuff in here. Look at all that. Alright, universal serial bus adapter. There you go. So the hardware in this is pretty standard fare, actually. This is a lower end of Lenovo crap. Go away. So anyway, what's in here is pretty standard fare. So, you know, it's got Intel HD. It's an Intel HD graphics model, so you never have to worry about repasting the GPU and the CPU and all that stuff for a good while. It's the perfect lower end model for my dad because he doesn't need any fancy features. He just needs a reliable machine. And I'm sorry to say that the Dell Latitude E5430 was not as reliable as it could be, mostly due to the fan controller giving out on it. So there you go. That is the ThinkPad T440p. What I'm going to do to this machine for my dad is I'm going to upgrade it to Windows 10 so that this thing has a hardware signed key. And then I will reinstall Windows 10 from scratch without any of the Lenovo crap on it. And get his data back on there, get his software on there, and be good to go pretty much. And my dad will have a new machine. And we unboxed it together, and he seemed to really like it. So I think this will do really well for him. And having used this trackpad a little while, and even used the track point, it's not as bad as I thought it would be, actually. It's not a completely terrible experience, but it's just plain not as good as having a ThinkPad such as this one here, that actually has physical buttons. It's just a lot more tactile. You can be a lot more accurate. There's dimples that sort of, and raised, there's texture, there's dimples, there's raised areas. That feels a ton better than this, which is one flat thing, and that just feels, you don't have much tactility other than these bumps here for the scrolling part. And that, I think, is a drawback. It looks worse than it actually is. Like, honestly, it's not that bad. So if you wanted to pick up one of these secondhand and use it as a laptop, that trackpad, if you just want to use it as a regular trackpad, it's fine. But if you want to use the track point, if you live by track points, this is probably not going to make you very happy. I could get by with it. I'd be fine with it. But I think some pickier people that need to have that tactility will have issues with that. Personally, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I'm glad they changed it back on the T450 and the X250. I think it's a very good thing that people bitched about it and had that changed, because this was not the smartest thing on Lenovo's part. But give to their credit, they listened to their consumers. They absolutely listened, which is great. So I will work on this ThinkPad, and it will be my dad's new machine. Very nice computer. Despite people not liking this trackpad and the track point buttons at all, the machine itself is pretty nice. It's still pretty solid. I mean, the plastic feels a little bit thinner. The display feels a little bit thinner and flexes a little bit on the top there. But that's really it. It's still a pretty solid machine. Still that classic ThinkPad quality, including the sort of rubberized coating on the outside. So overall, I do like the machine, but I think the 250 and the 250 and the 450, X250 and T450 are ones that I would be looking at over this one for track point alone. Mostly because I'm one of those people that loves the track point. Now, if you take a look at these ThinkPads that we've talked about, you can see that this one is definitely where the design language just goes bam and takes a huge change. I mean, you can see on this one that it still pretty much looks like an old IBM ThinkPad. I mean, the ThinkPad logo is still the old one. It's small. There's a Lenovo logo right there now, but it's still pretty much a classic ThinkPad, even right down to when you open it up. Classic ThinkPad keyboard, rounded off track point buttons there with the raised areas. Basketball textured trackpad with real buttons. And, you know, take a look at the T430, and it's almost the same as the T420. They made the logo a little bit bigger. They made this logo a little bit bigger, and that's about it. They didn't flip it around or anything. The biggest difference that it has a new keyboard compared to the T420. This is where they made the jump in the design language. They took this and moved to this, where there's a lot more flat, neat lines, including in the trackpad. They've lost that little curve that was here and have moved to a more flat design, but still had the raised areas, so it's still tactile enough to use. The new keyboard people complained about, but didn't complain very loudly about it. Personally, I think this keyboard is just fine. Still has the basketball textured trackpad with the real buttons and everything. But then you come to this ThinkPad. Oh, the logos have been flipped around. The color's slightly different. The port layout's a little bit different. The product line is different. You have to get the performance model to get the old ThinkPad form factor like you see on these two, whereas these are just regular T420 and T430 models. You open this up, and you just see how far the design language has come over the years. The T410 looked pretty much the same as this, and that's mostly where this design started. And it moved through the line, progressing a little bit, till we came to this. And then with the T450, they regressed a little bit by giving you the track point buttons back. But as you can see here, this is, I think, 2013, 2014 era right here. And you can see that they just took a leap of faith with the design language a little bit more. It was very much inspired by the ThinkPad X1 Carbon and X1. And that's why this trackpad was a thing. So there you go. That's a little bit of a look at the design changes through the whole line, through T-Series ThinkPad product lines. You can see they still have the ThinkLight on these models. They still use a physical latch here. As you can see, they have one there, and you have one here. But on the newer one, they use magnets, so it's a lot more modern in terms of design. And this trackpad is a more modern thing. I honestly think this is Lenovo's attempt to try to be Apple. Make a big one-button trackpad just because Apple's been doing it for so long and because a lot of other people in the industry are doing it as well. While I give them credit for adding some extra functionality to that with the track point buttons, I still don't think an all-in-one trackpad is right for a laptop that's known for its durability, tactility, and just, you know, a laptop that you feel should not have something like this. And that's where I think Lenovo went wrong. That's why people complained about it. And, hell, that's why I'm complaining about it. So, there you have it. That is the design of these ThinkPads through the years. This machine has come from a long lineage of computers, and it's quite a departure. It's interesting to see. So, in conclusion, that is a look at the ThinkPad T440p. I might pick one of these up myself at some point in the future. I'm not really set on it yet. I'd like one with a backlit keyboard if I ever get one, and I would not buy it new like I did for my dad. I'd buy it used, but it's a nice machine for what it is, despite this trackpad. So I think my dad will get a lot of good use out of this. It's a machine I've been dying to take a look at, and most importantly, the P model is one of the last ThinkPads I've seen that still have a DVD drive. So there you have it. the ThinkPad T440p. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and have a good one, everybody. Ciao.